All right, my name is Karin Broberg, and I am the In Our Own Voice coordinator at NAMI-NYC. And of course, In Our Own Voice is the presentation that you're going to be hearing today. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're super excited to bring this presentation to you. I'm going to go ahead and start with just a little bit of background about NAMI-NYC for those of you who maybe this is your first time joining us. So for those who are not aware, NAMI stands for the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and we're the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization. So NAMI provides advocacy, education, and support, both for people affected by mental illness themselves and for family members and friends. So NAMI exists all over the country, but of course we come from NAMI-NYC, which is NAMI's local New York City organization. So I wanted to take just a minute to talk a little bit about the different services and support that NAMI-NYC offers, in case it's something that would be relevant for anyone in the room or for someone you know. So one of the big things that NAMI does is we offer classes and support groups. Again, both for people who are dealing with mental health challenges themselves, but also for family members and friends of someone who might be struggling with mental health. All of our classes are completely free to access. All of our classes are support groups, workshops, this presentation tonight. All of our work is completely free to access. And it's available either over Zoom, like we are today, over the phone, or in person. We have an office in Midtown Manhattan where we also host classes and support groups a lot. And one thing that's really important to share about our services is that we are a peer-based organization. So what that means, basically, anytime you take a class, join a support group, or something like that, that is for people who are struggling with mental health, it's going to be led by someone who also lives with mental health challenges. And anytime you're joining a class or a group for family members, it's going to be led by someone who is themselves a family member. So that's a really important part of what we do. We want to make sure that when you come to NAMI for support, you're being met by someone who can really understand and empathize with your situation. So again, all of our programming is free. You can find details about all of our classes and support groups via our website. That's at naminyc.org. We have over 40 different support groups at this time, so I'm not going to go into detail about all of them. I did want to mention, since tonight's session is focused around mental health in AAPI communities, we do have 2 support groups that are specifically for folks who identify as Asian American or Pacific Islander, one that is for peers and one that is for family members. So in case that's something that feels important for you to kind of join a group with people who identify as part of that group, definitely feel free to check that out. Again, we'll put links into the chat here. I also want to mention that we have a really fantastic phone helpline that you can call for support, advice, information, referrals. Our phone helpline is open Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. So definitely recommend calling them. They can help either if you want to learn more about NAMI services, or if maybe you are struggling to access other mental health care services around the city. They can give advice and referrals. So I think that is all that I wanted to share. I can also mention, again, some of you might have joined other sessions in this series. We're calling this our Mental Health Story Hour. We're doing these every Thursday night for 6 weeks. And after tonight, there's also going to be 2 more sessions in the series. So for anyone who just can't get enough of stories about mental health recovery and resilience, I recommend checking out the one next week and in 2 weeks as well. Of course, again, they're all free, and so we would love to see you for another evening. And again, the purpose of In Our Own Voice is really just to break down some of the stigmas and misconceptions that exist around what it is like to live with a mental health condition. So we want to, share our stories in a way that would be helpful for you. And we're also going to be allowing questions throughout as well. So yeah, really excited to get started. That is all from me. So I'm going to hand it over to one of our fantastic volunteer presenters for tonight. I think we are starting with Brenda.
Thank you, Karen. My name is Brenda, and I'm originally from San Diego, California. I moved to New York around about 14 years ago. I live with my attention-loving dog, Rosie. You might see her every once in a while pop her in. Rosie actually knows more people in my neighborhood than me, and my life practically revolves around her right now. I've recently taken up crocheting. I find it relaxing. After I mastered certain crochet stitches. And then I'd rather spend my time with dogs than people. Um, my sister, she knows that I visit her because of her dogs rather than her. So I'm going to pass it on to Jesse.
Thank you, Brenda. I'm originally from Boston, Massachusetts, and I moved to New York after I graduated from Georgetown in 2020. Now I'm a grad student at Yale University. So our presentation is divided into three parts: what happened, what helps, and what's next. Our purpose today is to share how mental health has impacted our lives and describe what kind of habits and changes support our mental health. And during each section that I mentioned before, we will briefly share our personal story and then have time for discussion and questions. Or Brenda, or sorry, Karen, are we doing questions at the end or are we doing questions after each section?
No, we'll do them after each section as long as we have time.
Got it. We are here for you and want to share our stories in a way that's relevant to you. The first part of our presentation will touch on some difficult topics, excuse me, but if you can stay with us, it will be more positive over time. And now I'm going to pass back on to Brenda for what happened to her.
Thank you. So what happened? I first sought treatment in 2012, but looking back, my symptoms started as far back as when I was in elementary school. I sought treatment because I was becoming more and more forgetful, and I was unable to concentrate. I was always irritable, and I felt disconnected from my everything, actually. I was physically present, but mentally, I wasn't quite there. So someone could be talking to me, and I wouldn't be registering what they're saying to me. I'd just be there. At first, I thought I had ADHD because I had some of the symptoms, and at that time, that was one of the only mental health disorders I really knew about. Then I thought I had early onset Alzheimer's because I was forgetting how to complete tasks and needing people to repeat what they said to me. I also lost track of time, and sometimes I didn't know what day it was. Eventually, I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder, generalized social anxiety, and later obsessive compulsive disorder. In the beginning, I only told one person about my condition. Um, I didn't tell my family or my friends because I didn't want to burden them because they already have a lot going on with their lives. And I was also too embarrassed about how my mental illness impacted my life. Um, most days, I'm embarrassed to say, I struggled to complete a lot of my activities of daily living, like eating, showering, brushing my teeth, getting out of bed, and changing my clothes. On days when I didn't have the energy to take a shower and I had to go somewhere, um, I would put on a lotion that had a really strong scent. Um, if it was the weekend, I would just stay in bed all day and go without showering, brushing my teeth, or changing my clothes. Sometimes I didn't even eat. And this, however many days I didn't have to go anywhere, that's how many days I went without showering, brushing my teeth, and changing my clothes. Um, yeah. And then I didn't tell my coworkers either. I was afraid that people would think that I wasn't capable of doing my job. There have been times where I forgot how to do simple tasks, like actually most recently, um, I was working on this spreadsheet and had to do this formula, and I've used this formula many times, but for the life of me, I just couldn't figure out how to do it. And I tried over and over again, and I was too embarrassed to even ask a coworker to help me because I was thinking like, What if they think that, oh, you're in this position, but you can't even do a simple Excel formula? So I just sat there trying it for like 2 hours with my anxiety, and I started to get really angry with myself because I couldn't do it. So all that effort that I needed to like hide my mental illness just made it a lot worse. I tend to spend a lot of time in my head. I often have thoughts. Okay, oh, sorry. I often have thoughts that I know are irrational, but I can't help but believe it. My irrational part of me, so sorry, is a lot strong. Is a lot, so sorry. Is a lot stronger than my rational part of me. Rosie, sorry. For example, there was a couple times a week where I think that she's mad at me or that she hates me, Rosie, because she's sitting at her bed and staring at me as opposed to sitting next to me on the couch, or and because she's not waiting for me outside the bathroom, she no longer likes me. This spirals into me Googling, how do I know my dog loves me? Or how do I know my dog feels safe with me? I keep Googling the same thing over and over again because the same thoughts come off every once in a while, every week. I often feel that my worst fears would come true. Is the thought true? No, but it's hard for me to stop feeling like that fear is going to come true. Like, for example, Rosie again, she didn't eat her breakfast. So my worst fear is that she's really sick and I need to take her to the vet, and or she might die or she might starve. There's something really wrong with her. In reality, she probably just saw me put medicine in her food and she doesn't want to eat it now, or she just wasn't hungry and she'll eat dinner. Obsessions. Sometimes certain thoughts become obsessions for me. Similar to when you get a song stuck into your head, my thoughts could last days. Sometimes it could come back weeks later or months. If someone said something to me and it triggered some sort of a negative emotion, or I'm upset with myself because I was too scared to say what I wanted to say, I would replay that memory over and over again, along with what I wanted to say, but I didn't say. Some nights, these obsessive thoughts just kept me up, and I would just keep thinking about it. And then next thing I know, it's 6 o'clock in the morning and I have to go to work. And my mental illness also affected my physical health. So from gastrointestinal issues to body aches, some days the pain could be so bad that it's hard for me to move. I've seen so many different specialists and went through all different types of tests for blood tests, imaging scans, and diagnostic procedures. All of them came back, I was perfectly fine, perfectly healthy, but I didn't feel it. So when I was feeling some way, I would turn to Google, which I tell you, it's a really, really bad idea, especially with a person with anxiety. So, for example, when I have a headache, I would turn to Google and I would end up thinking that I have a brain tumor. And then the obsessive thoughts would appear. Should I go to the doctor? Should I go to the emergency room? Should I Google, when do you go see the doctor for a headache? And then that just keeps going on. And I keep reading the same article, going to the same website over and over again. And I stay up late at night Googling and looking at the same articles. But in reality, these extreme conclusions were the result of my anxiety and me catastrophizing. My mental illness has also impacted my financial health. And it has nothing to do with all the doctor's appointments that I've been to. It's actually, so when I'm really depressed, I tend to aimlessly scroll on my phone and I usually end up making purchases that I eventually don't need. Shopping is my go-to compulsive behavior to get rid of the discomfort that is kind of produced by my anxiety. So situations that I think might be solved by me purchasing something, I will mindlessly, aimlessly look for it. So for example, Rosie again. She's been eating tissue. And I think that in order to solve that, I need a box to put put the tissue box in. So I go to Amazon, and there's one too many choices. So I keep scrolling, and the next thing I know, it's 6 a.m. And then I can also obsess over food, like cravings. So mine could last weeks and sometimes months. My last one was grapes. I ate grapes for every day for like 3 months. My new coworkers thought I loved grapes and I was a healthy eater, which I really am not. Um, and so you can get a sense of my mental state by how many Amazon packages I receive or how many orders I make on Instacart. Yeah. So I'm going to turn it over to Jesse. So what happened?
Thanks, Brenda. So, around the end of my first semester of college, I became very depressed. Had a lack of energy. I ate less. My mood was very sad, and this sad was pretty similar to like feeling extremely like just energyless, despondent. Nothing could improve my upset or sad mood. I didn't experience much grief before in high school. This never happened to me, and my mood was just the polar opposite of being happy. It stayed that way for a long period of time until I was hospitalized and diagnosed with depression for the first time in my life in the second semester of my first year of college. I was originally diagnosed and hospitalized with depression and given antidepressants. And like I said, it was the first time in my life and I felt fine. But I decided that my initial depression wasn't due to separation anxiety from my parents. I actually went to freshman year, I went to college. I went to a school in Indiana called School of Notre Dame. It's pretty far from the East Coast where I'm from. So I transferred to Georgetown University, where I ended up graduating from in 2020, but this is my sophomore year. And the first fall of my time at Georgetown, I experienced a psychotic episode where I was just having delusional thoughts that were impacting my life and making me very irrational and anxious and unable to sleep. And then I was hospitalized for a psychotic episode. Um, at this point, I had pretty bad side effects from medications from my psychotic episodes, and like my parents decided I needed a break from school to still like take like watch over my mental health. Excuse me, like take care of my mental health. So I took a semester off, and this was about the spring of 2018. Now, summer of 2018, before I returned for the fall of 2018, I had a manic episode. And during my manic episode, this lasted for like 4 to 5 months. This like 2 to 3 months, maybe. And then I thought I was Jesus. I thought I was the king of the world. I thought everyone had to worship me. I was just very delusional and a lot of energy and couldn't sleep well. And just, it was very bad for my mental health and dangerous to others because I was just acting very like irascible and irritable, excuse me. This euphoria lasted a while, and I was hospitalized again for the third time in less than 2 years. And I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder type 1. My family was confused because bipolar disorder generally runs in the family, and we had no one who was previously diagnosed in bipolar disorder from our family. But bipolar disorder could also be diagnosed from or traced to environmental factors as well.
So what helps? The turning point for me was when I was hospitalized for 2 weeks in the psychiatric ward. I think it was like 2014. My therapist at that time told me that she could no longer offer me the services that I needed. I needed a more like hospital setting or that had like wraparound services, whether it be inpatient or outpatient. She even floated the idea of a psychiatric inpatient program that was in Chicago. Apparently, that's a really good program. Um, so those 2 weeks in the psychiatric ward was two of the most relaxing weeks ever. But I never want to go back to it. I didn't have to worry about my students. I didn't have to worry about my team. I didn't have to worry about what to eat. I didn't have to worry about people finding out about my mental illness. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I belonged. I no longer had to put on this like mask and pretend that I'm okay, but in reality, I just was emotionally empty and I was thinking some very dangerous thoughts. And this was also the first time I met other people who were in a similar situation as me. So being able to talk to people who were going through a similar journey made it easier for me to talk about my mental illness. I didn't have to worry about them judging me or feel like I needed to defend myself, because they just understood what I was trying to say. So like when I tell people I spend most of my time in bed, people would think that I'm just being lazy. But in reality, just didn't have the energy to make those daily decisions and, have to deal with the outside world. So I just stay in bed. And then finding a therapist, finding the right therapist for me has also made a big difference for me. I went through like 5 different therapists before I met my current one. We've been working on building my confidence and so I can empower and advocate for myself. So there was this one time, so I'm part of a psychiatric outpatient program. And before I was assigned to a permanent psychiatrist, I went through new resident psychiatrists every July 1. And I had this one psychiatrist who I didn't agree with the treatment plan. He thought that treating my anxiety came secondary to treating my depression. But at that time, my anxiety was a lot worse than my depression. But he was adamant about following through with the treatment plan. So after every session, I just left so frustrated that I just wanted to cry. And so during my therapy session, my therapist and I worked on how I could advocate for myself. We did this by role playing the scenario, and so I could practice what to say. In the end, I did tell the psychiatrist that I didn't agree with his treatment plan, and I didn't feel like he was listening to me. I eventually ended up with a new psychiatrist because nothing came from it. Because I was no longer comfortable opening up to him. It's really important for me to be comfortable to open up to people that help me professionally. This is also the first time I actually tried to advocate for myself, and I didn't back down, which was good. Medication. Medication also helped me. It reduced some of the symptoms so I can be present in therapy and learn how to manage the symptoms. My depression is considered treatment resistant, meaning the standard treatments that people are offered in the beginning are not enough for me. I needed a combination of drugs that not only helped treat my depression, but also my anxiety and my OCD. My experience with different types of medication varied. So one medication treated my anxiety, but increasing my energy level, but it also made my anxiety worse because it increased my energy level. And then an antipsychotic was added at one point to treat my OCD. It helped. It helped real well. All my ruminating thoughts were gone, but the problem is I was unable to think and function. And I also gained 30 pounds. Which was noticeable because my clothes no longer fit and people were asking me, "Are you pregnant?" This has led me to be very self-conscious about my body and how my clothes fit me. So I still ask myself before I walk out the door, does this what I'm wearing make me look pregnant? And sometimes I think about it throughout the day as well. But even though the antipsychotic worked, the side effects were just too much for me. So I requested to not take those. But finding the right combination really helped. Disclosing to my family and friends, telling my family and friends also helped. Receiving positive reactions when I told them about my mental illness. I began to accept certain aspects of it instead of struggling with them. They also helped me in different ways. For example, when my symptoms become overwhelming at work, I would just move to my coworker's office. The office was quiet, the presence was calming, and there was a crowd of people talking. And people, they were very understanding of my mental illness, and they knew that some of my decisions came from it. So my friends would invite me to something, but they know that there's a high chance that, I'd say no or change my mind last minute. because the social part is just a lot. And then they also know that I don't respond to my messages right away. And they know that it's not because I no longer want them in my life. It's because unless it's a message that requires a one-word answer or asking me for help, I I just can't. It takes me a while to answer because sometimes I just don't have the energy to hold a conversation. Um, so it can take me days and weeks. I think I have a text that I have not responded to, so I apologize to whoever that is. Um, and then I also flood people's phones with pictures and videos of Rosie. Um, and then learning how to celebrate the small achievements. So learning how to identify and celebrate the small achievements. Like for example, doing the dishes. At one point I had some dishes that have been sitting there for like 5 months or so. Um, and I finally did them, and I was really happy with myself. And every time I walked past my sink, I smiled. So that was the little or I moved from my bed to the couch on a weekend. So for some people, doing these things may be easy, but for me, it requires a lot of energy, and sometimes I just don't have it. And then I also have to ignore those anxious thoughts, and that takes a lot of energy too. And then deep pressure therapy, Rosie again. Her weight on me sometimes helps ground me and helps me relax when I get a little bit overwhelmed from work and everything. Um, and then also developing and maintaining a routine also helps. Routines allow me to know what to expect next instead of having to anxiously figure out what to do next, which usually ends up me getting frustrated and staying in bed. Um, yeah. And that's what helps with me. I'm going to turn it over to Jesse.
Thanks, Brenda. Like Brenda said, my medications had several side effects at first as well. I don't know, with significant weight gain, memory loss, sleepiness, drowsiness, nausea sometimes. And it took about several months, almost a year, for me to lose all the weight that I gained excessively from medication. And I did a lot of exercise, and I still do exercise on like a weekly, daily basis, 5 times a week. I find exercise is really helpful to cope with my mental health because I believe physical health and mental health are intercorrelated and interrelated. And good mental health leads to good physical health, and vice versa. Um, I also have take good care of my sleep and good dieting. I try to eat as healthy as I possibly can. I try to get at least 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night. I know it's not always possible when you're traveling or going different time zones or have someone's birthday party that night or something. I know it's not always possible, but I make it like really important to like catch up on sleep whenever I lose like the that 7 to 9 hours and I'll attain that. In terms of support systems, I go to therapy once a month. I have it paid for by my Yale insurance. Sometimes it's hard to pay for therapy, but I think therapy is important for your mental health or one's mental health. Um, I'm blessed to have it. Like, it used to be paid by my work, now it's paid by my Yale insurance at grad school. So try to go when I can. And my therapist also prescribes medication, so that's even better. Now I said two birds with one stone. She's a therapist and she's a psychiatrist, which is a blessing. But my parents, my friends are really important to my support system. Also, my parents' insurance still age of 26. I just turned 26, so I'm off their insurance. But up until then, I was on their insurance that really saved me a lot of money with psychiatric appointments and medication refilling. So I was blessed to be with my parents that they have good jobs and they have good insurance. So thank you to my parents for that. Um, I also believe like going to your friends for support systems, like just you have someone to call all the time or text all the time. That's really important because we wouldn't be out here without our friends and family. And I also wanted to acknowledge that like I took a semester off from Georgetown when I was had a psychotic episode. I mentioned this before. I had a psychotic episode, but I still graduated college on time in 3.5 semesters because of my parents' support and my friends' support. My parents had Like first of all, they paid for my undergrad, which for most of my undergrad, so I'm indebted to them for that. No way would I let them pay for my grad school. That would be ridiculous. They should not be paying for my grad school. They aren't. I'm taking loans for my grad school and scholarship, but my parents supported me through undergrad. They through insurance plan. I'm grateful for them. So like having good support system really helps as well. And for now, I already mentioned good exercise, staying fit, good dieting, good sleeping. I rarely drink alcohol as well. I find that alcohol really bad when taking medications as well with alcohol. That I strongly advise against drinking meds with alcohol. That's a no. That's just common sense. Um, Obviously, like if I know I'm drinking the night, I'll take my meds early in the morning, and then I'll drink at night like one beverage because I don't want my medications to interact with like alcohol, the effects of alcohol, and I don't do any other drugs like alcohol. Like a lot of people have tried alcohol, like yeah, drinking for like special occasions, but I would never drink alcohol with my meds. I always take it with water, and I think that's the that's the common guideline.
Even though the past couple years have been difficult, there were some times that were rewarding. Um, so I obtained my master's degree in school counseling. Originally, I was really reluctant to go back to school because I was afraid that it's going to be a repeat of high school and college where like I barely passed my classes. But those fears never came true. I earned A's in all but one of my classes, which is great. Um, and then another highlight is seeing the students that I've worked with go to and through college, and some of them are actually my coworkers. Um, and even one of my former students is about to graduate from graduate school, and I can't wait to go to her graduation. Um, and then also, I'm afraid of heights. I don't stop at certain subway stops because the escalator is really steep and I'm afraid that I'm going to fall. But I went skydiving. Um, Unfortunately, that didn't cure my fear of heights, but you know, I did it. Um, and then again, Rosie, getting a dog and making it through her puppy phase. I did a lot of research before I got a dog, but the research did not prepare me for the mental, emotional, and physical challenges that came with it. But with support, I we both made it through, and I did not go through with my constant thought of giving her away. um, So now I'm essentially a soccer mom for a dog. I take her to playgroup. I take her to classes. I take her to sleepovers, and I chaperone her volunteer time. Um, and I told myself that I always want to train my dog to be a therapy dog. So now Rosie and I are actually officially a therapy dog team. And come April, we will be visiting patients at a children's hospital. And inviting people to this showcase, inviting people I know, my family and my friends to this showcase. Um, this is like the first time I've actually said aloud certain aspects of my struggle and my journey to recovery. I wanted them to see how their support, whether they realize it or not, helped me get to this point where I'm speaking about my journey to a group of people. Even a couple months ago, I wouldn't have imagined me speaking and being vulnerable in front of a group of people and mostly strangers. Um, it, traveling, solo traveling. I've traveled solo to Italy, Ireland, Scotland, and Egypt. And I've also dog sled and winter camped in Minnesota, which was great. And then the places I want to go to include New Zealand, Namibia, Antarctica, and Norway. Basically cold places, except for New Zealand and Namibia, excuse me. And then reconciling with the fact that the person who's been there for me since the beginning of my journey is no longer here. The first person I told about my mental illness, and the only person who knew the most about my struggles and helped me the most. when the symptoms were overwhelming. So I have to get through that, and it's going to take a while for that to happen. So that's a part of my to-do list. And then, so my goal is not to find a cure. My illness is chronic. My goal is to learn skills that will help me reduce the intensity of my symptoms related to my mental illness. I want to improve my self-esteem by learning to value and love myself and create a life worth living. So loving myself means being compassionate to myself, not being able to, being able to confidently set boundaries, be able to say no and not feel guilty about it. Being assertive and confident in what I do and the decisions I make. And for me, life worth living is not always having an internal argument with myself before I say or do something, and not caring about being judged, not holding on to what people say or do. And then also being in our own voices presenter is also helped me with my treatment. So you all being here contributed to my treatment because you took the time to come here and listen, which allowed me to practice and develop my public speaking skills and is building my confidence. And I'm also learning that being vulnerable is not that scary. So at the end of the presentation, there's going to be an evaluation form. So I appreciate it if you filled it out because it will help me. The feedback will help me for my future presentations. So thank you everyone for taking the time and helping me. Just
Thanks, Brenda. I'm currently in my second semester, first year at Yale for studying healthcare management. Ideally, I want to work in healthcare consulting and eventually continue to stay mentally healthy and physically healthy, as well as to continue to raise awareness about mental health to the public through NAMI. And I'm also a research intern, graduate school intern at the Prime Psychosis Clinic at Yale University, where I advise tasks on mental health and data and mental health research. Um, I'm eventually considering going to public service one day to help make healthcare more accessible and affordable and efficient. And that really pertains to mental health care as well, because mental health treatment needs to be expanded and needs to be destigmatized, and there needs to be more awareness of mental health. There's a lot of disparities in and I learned about this in school and through experience between social economic status and mental health and healthcare. Like your mental health, your quality of mental health care is often determined by your zip code where you're born in, and that's not fair. So I want to help end the mental health stigma and eventually pass like legislative bills, probably in Boston when I move back to, but I'll still be part of NAMI, so no worries about that. And any questions? Thank you.
All right, amazing. Thank you everyone for listening and for prioritizing mental health.